Alrighty. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Dark Souls. When we last left off, we had just gotten through to this about middle area of the Undead Burg. Came up from Firelink Shrine, made our way through here, visited the Undead Merchant, and got a few items dotted around that initial area. Oh, I did not mean to drag this guy into aggro. So, on today's episode, we're going to be making our way through the rest of the Undead Burg, or at least the good majority of it, and hopefully getting our way to the first Bell of Awakening. Now, before we get this episode off proper, I do feel like I should go over something that I probably missed last episode, that being what exactly each covenant does. So, I went over briefly what the covenants are last episode, mentioning that most of them have something to do with multiplayer mechanics for the most part, except for one, I believe. But I forgot to specify what each covenant does, which I should be doing as we get them. So, for anything, as I also mentioned last episode, whenever you join a covenant, you can just switch them up by going to this covenant option and choosing whatever covenants you have unlocked. Now, the Way of the White Covenant is most likely going to be the first covenant you ever get. When you start the game, if you start the game as either a knight or a cleric, you will already be in the Way of the White Covenant, so you don't have to get it from Petrus, but otherwise you will have to join it through Petrus. Now, the Way of the White Covenant, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any extra rewards or anything that you can unlock from the Way of the White Covenant. I believe all that it does is assist in matchmaking. I believe it, perhaps not matchmaking. I do know that if you are part of the Way of the White Covenant, it's supposed to make it so that you don't get invaded as often by other players. I also remember there's something being about matchmaking, but I'm not 100% sure on that front. It's basically like, I believe, in Dark Souls 3, the Way of the White Covenant works with, if you get invaded, then blue sentinels are summoned to assist you. In Dark Souls 1, it just makes it so that you don't get invaded as often. It's a pretty useful covenant for beginners, especially if you're playing online. We, or at least I, am not playing online in this walkthrough, just because getting invaded by online players, I feel like, would ruin the flow of this guide slash walkthrough almost. And also, you know, if I'm in the middle of discussing a piece of lore and then suddenly some naked guy with a giant sword just coming in out of nowhere and instantly killing me, I feel like that would ruin the flow of conversation. But anyway, so that's just basically what the Way of the White Covenant does. Pretty simple. It's probably the most, I would say, just unremarkable of all of the covenants. The other covenants have, like, progressions, except for one more. I believe the Sunlight Guards, the one that you get from a character who we'll meet way later on in the story. I'll point it out when it happens, but I don't think you can progress through that covenant either. But aside from that, so our plan for today is to get to the rest of this area. We're going to start by killing this guy, who will pretty much auto-aggro on us. And this guy, visiting bows and arrows, and this guy, who's just going to attack us with his sword. So, as you can see, there's a bunch of guys up there. They're throwing their fire bombs down. Really annoying. Just kind of got to run through this area. Another bit of an ambush here. It's not too difficult to deal with. Mostly take out these axe guys first, just because they're easier to kill. Ooh, got the parry. Hell yeah. Alrighty, now that we're through that, we're gonna go up into this little spot. Kill this guy, and just around this corner there's another guy. Him. Alright, now we're gonna walk over here, and we're gonna grab this chest, which has black fire bombs. Useful item to have. This little house, or whatever this is. Walk up these stairs. Now we've got a bunch of guys. This guy in the back of the group, I forgot he throws black fire bombs on. Honestly, if you see an undead or a hollow like this that doesn't have a shield, there's a good chance that means he's got a throwable item that they might use. It's not every time, but if you see an hollow without a shield, especially in these initial areas, probably a good idea to go for them first, just in case they start throwing fire bombs or knives or something. Kill that guy. Balls are there. Gonna try and keep that post in between us. So that second guy gets fireballs. And that guy has got himself quite the tricky position. But deal with him. So another soul of a lost undead. From here, we're gonna head back. Nope, just a little ledge. Alright, come down there. Alright, now before we move on, we're going to head up to this watchtower, and we're going to get this archer guy. Doesn't notice us in that little area, courtyard area right here, but over there he'll take notice of us and then he'll snipe us from above, and that is really annoying. So, now that we're done with that, use the residence key to open this door. The master key also works. So, honestly, probably shouldn't even really bother with the residence key. I do, just in case. Now, I'm going to open this chest. It's going to give us some gold pine resin, which is very useful, especially for an upcoming boss. Now, we're going to... Oh. That guy attacked me sooner than I thought he would. Ooh. Got overwhelmed. Yep, you see what happens when you try and get a little too aggressive, then these guys just absolutely destroy you. Well, lessons to keep in mind for later. Estus there. I don't think that guy's coming after me. So yeah, those hollows that have a sword but no shield, often a sign that they're carrying something else that they're going to throw at you. Again, not always, but good to just keep that tracked. Alrighty, got our souls back and our 1 humanity. And that's another thing. Sometimes through killing enemies, it'll give you a humanity, not as a drop, like an item, but as just something that just goes up on your counter. And thing with humanity is even if you haven't reversed your hollowing, more humanity will boost your item discovery. The highest amount of humanity you can have is 10 on the counter, but with reversing your hollowing, that will, if you reverse your hollowing and then get your humanity counter up to 10 in the top left, that will technically mean you have 11 humanity, which will boost your item discovery even more. So it's very useful for farming and, as I said, reverse hollowing boosts your health, but we'll be going over that in more detail when I actually reverse hollowing, which we won't be doing for a little while yet because there's not much of a point to yet. Alrighty, now, down here, as you can see, there's a big dude in armor. This is a pretty common thing throughout the Souls series. In a sort of off-track bit, there will oftentimes be a very powerful late-game enemy just in an early area to serve as a sort of early challenge. These are either enemies that you take note of and you try to come back to, or you can challenge them right now and essentially give yourself a challenge, but with the for the chance to get some early end-game loot. So, we are going to be challenging this dude right now. Or at least we're going to try. Fighting him down here is a complete pain in the ass. It is just super tight corner and just an absolute pain to try and deal with him. So instead what we're going to do is walk down just enough to target him, and then we're going to throw a knife at him. That'll draw his attention. We're going to run all the way up. Now you can fight him over here if you want, but honestly, the better idea is leading him all the way up these stairs and fighting him up here. Now, you want to try and get the backstab on him by just strafing around him. It can be a little hard to land, but you should eventually get the feel for it. Keep in mind, getting a backstab on guys like this, it's not exactly where like the center of his back is. It's more just to the left of it, I'd say. Mostly because the backstab point doesn't change no matter where his animation cycle is. So when you're strafing around him to try and get the backstab, it'll often end up being just a little bit to the left of where the center of his back is. It's not by much, it's just by a tiny amount, but it's enough to screw you, to confuse you if you're just trying to go for the immediate small of his back. Like I just tried to do right there. Or like right there. Honestly, so long as you have a shield that has 100% physical, he's not the most difficult to get to deal with. You just gotta exercise patience, wait for him to do his attacks, and just strafe around him and try to get the backstab. Now, another thing to note is when fighting guys like this, they can deal a lot of damage to your stamina. So a common strategy is to have your guard down and then pull up your shield at the last second, because when your shield is up, your stamina recharges a lot slower, but when your shield is down, your stamina recharges faster. So honestly, you should try and just keep your shield down until just before he's about to hit you, and then raise your shield. And I got a Black Knight sword and a Titanite chunk. Wow. That is honestly an insane drop. I did not think I was going to get something like that so early in the game. Oh, what's the stat requirement for this? So this is a strength and dex scaling weapon, but mostly strength. You need 20 strength and 18 dex to wield this. Wow, that is insane. Where's my stuff at right now? Honestly, we're not too far off. Wow. Alright, well, that is definitely something we're going to be using later. Let's deal with this annoying guy. Alright, well, if we come back down to this area where the Black Knight was, you'll find a guy here with a blue tearstone ring. Now, if you look... Now, this blue tearstone ring is very important. I mean, for one, it's just a good item. It boosts defense while your HP is low. So if you're a newer player and you're getting your ass handed to you by stronger enemies, this is basically like a last stand saving grace, almost. If your HP is getting really down there, then it'll just, you know, make your defense stronger, which helps you survive, possibly giving you a chance to, you know, restore your HP by helping you tank a hit, and failing that, maybe just helping you last just a little bit longer so that you can get those last few hits on whatever enemy you're struggling with. Aside from that, though, this blue tearstone ring also has some interesting lore implications. So if we read the description, this rare gem called Tearstone has the uncanny ability to sense imminent death. Its blue tearstone ring from Katarina boosts the defense of its wearer when in danger. So notice where it says it's from. Katarina. That's going to be important later on. Very, very important. Because an NPC later on, as well as a certain item that NPC has, will basically help us discover the identity of who that corpse over there is, because they will also have another ring just like this. So, important lore implications for later. Now, as you can see, the path ends here. It seems like it should be going forward into that tower, but the path just kind of ends and falls apart. This, too, is an important spot for lore reasons. More important than you'd think, actually. It is surprising just how small of a detail this seems like, but what it rolls into. For those of you who are fans of Hawkshaw, I believe they're called, you'll know what I'm talking about. They've got a very cool lore slash... a lore story featuring around a specific character that does involve this fallen bridge and that blue tearstone ring, and it's a great theory, one that I too happen to support for the most part, at least. So if you're fans of them, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, well, we'll get to that much later when the time is appropriate. So, coming up here, want to be careful, because as you can see, there's a hollow up there, and there's a big old barrel that he's looking to kick down at us. So, we gotta run up, and then run back down. The moment you see him move, and the barrel will kind of just fall down over there. Empty barrel, nothing there. This guy will come down after it, and just kill him. Devious trap if you're not looking for it, but if you know it's there, it's easy enough to avoid. Now, this door right here can be opened using the master key. Do not go down there yet. There's a guy down there, and he will absolutely kick your ass. Do not go down there just yet. Instead, we're going to head up this way. Those are fun to roll through. Up here, more barrels. And as you just saw, one of those barrels was holding a Titanite lizard. These guys are very important because they are carrying powerful upgrade materials. Especially twinkling Titanite. You will get those from these lizards as well as some enemies much later on in the game. These are very important upgrade materials, as well as the large Titanite shards and just other variations. Alrighty, so here we have another fog door, and this is going to lead to our very first boss, the Taurus Demon. Now, this demon has a particular strategy that should be used against it. First and foremost, gold pine resin. This boss is weak to lightning damage, I believe, so the gold pine resin that you just got is an effective way to deal with him. Aside from that, there's another little trick to this boss fight. So, initially enter. As you'll notice, the fog doors are still up. That's an early sign that this is actually a boss room. Now, he hasn't shown up just yet. He's hiding around here somewhere. So before he shows up, we're going to do a little bit of setup. Mostly being this ladder. This ladder is going to be your best friend throughout this fight, because this ladder is going to let you do something that we demonstrated in the very first boss of the game, with the Asylum demon back in the Undead Asylum. That's right, drop attacks. Now, these two guys are very annoying. If you don't figure out that these guys are here, which you will the first time this boss fight is happening, when you go to challenge the boss, these guys will be shooting you with arrows that are just further annoyance. So you'll pretty much learn about this place existing the first time you fight the boss, because that's where the arrows will be coming from. Anyways, now that these guys are dead, we're going to climb back down. Oh, and in this game, if you're climbing a ladder, you see me climbing it like this. Even if I press B or the dash button, it doesn't increase my speed or anything, unlike in Elden Ring or I think even Bloodborne and the like. But if you are sitting completely still and then you hit the dash button, you drop. That's just a way to get down ladders faster. Aside from that, now we are going to put on our gold pine resin. Electrify our weapon, and now we're going to run. And now we're going to run this way. Run away from the big scary tourist demon. And we're going to get up this ladder. And now we're going to aim here. And get the drop attack. Do a bunch of damage to this guy. Now, we're going to have to get him back up. And going to run for the ladder again. Now, don't stay on top of this tower for too long. If you just sit up here for long enough, this guy will jump up here. So, just as quick as you can, lock onto him, and just get the drop attack on him. And he dealt some damage, that's just fine. Here. Heal again. Oh. And we're going to get another drop. Back off. And he missed. And gonna get a last one. So yeah, another fairly easy boss fight. Victory achieved. So yeah, another fairly easy boss fight to just cheese with the drop attacks. Fortunately, I think that's the last boss fight where the game will let you do that. Every other boss fight from here, as far as I'm aware, is, you know, you're just gonna have to make it straightforward. Although, I suppose technically there is one more boss that you could technically do drop attacks, but he doesn't ever really position himself in a way that it would let you do it. But, you know, I suppose in that boss fight technically it is possible. If you're not sure which boss fights I'm talking about, don't worry, I'll point it out when we get to it. But here's a little hint, it's another demon that is also in this area. So, now that we've dealt with that guy, we're just going to continue on our way and get down here. Now you see this bridge full of lots of guys. We're not going down that way yet. Instead, we're going to come this way, and we're going to meet one of the greatest characters in the entirety of video game history, the legendary Solaire.
Ah, Hello. You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son. Do you find that strange? Well, you should. No need to hide your reaction. I get that look all the time.
So, yeah, this is one of the greatest characters in video game history. Be in awe.
Oh, aha. So I didn't scare you. I have a proposition, if you have a moment.
Please tell me your wisdom, O brilliant man of the sun.
The way I see it, our fates appear to be intertwined. In a land brimming with hollows, could that really be mere chance? So what do you say? Why not help one another on this lonely journey?
Yes, always.
This pleases me greatly. Well then, take this.
Yes, white sign soapstone. Very important item.
We are amidst strange beings in a strange land. The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out. The very fabric wavers, and relations shift and obscure. There's no telling how much longer your world and mine will remain in contact. But use this to summon one another as spirits, cross the gaps between the worlds, and engage in jolly cooperation. Of course, we are not the only ones engaged in this, but I am a warrior of the sun. Spot my summon signature easily by its brilliant aura. If you miss it, you must be blind.
So yeah, Solaire's whole deal is that he will give you the white sign soapstone, and that is how you participate in the cooperative multiplayer of this game. Honestly, one of the best aspects of this game. And he is the poster boy for, as is so fittingly called, jolly cooperation. So, let's talk to him a little bit more.
Oh, hello there. I will stay behind to gaze at the sun. The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
So, yeah, his whole bit is that he loves the sun. I doubt there's another man on Earth who loves the sun as much as this man. And he wants to find his own sun. Yeah, I'm not even really sure what that means. As far as I can tell, he just wants to find his own goal and destiny. Don't know why he thinks that it'll be in the form of the sun, but that is what caused so many people to believe that Solaire here is a son of Gwyn. Yeah, he's not. Alrighty, so next up we have this bridge. This bridge is a bit tricky because there's one more enemy that shows up on this bridge. An enemy that we've seen before. An enemy who is very likely going to kick your ass. Let's run! And running, and running, and running, and running, and running, and running, and got me. Well, thankfully I didn't die. You are very unlikely to die from getting hit with that attack. But, as you can see, the red kite dragon that we met before, yeah, now he's here. Here to completely just ruin our day. And he's not attacking. Weird. Alright, anyways, yeah, so that's what makes this bridge such a difficult thing to deal with, because he's here, and he will just burn you alive, like he does everyone else on this bridge. So, we can continue on. I swear I'm missing something. Ah, yes, here. So, if you'll remember, I mentioned that a lot of this first Dark Souls game is going to have pathways that interconnect with one another and basically lead back to the same bonfire. Well, here's a perfect example of that. Back to the bonfire where we started the episode. Now we're here. Alrighty. Now, we're going to level up a bit. First, we should probably spend our souls. Use this. We're going to repair our equipment. Just because we don't want any of it to break. And now, we're going to level up. So, normally, I like to get my vitality to 15 first, and get my endurance to a similar level as well. But you saw that sword, that wonderful, glorious Black Knight sword, and it requires 20 strength and 18 dex. So yeah, we're going to be going for that sword first. So, now we have 20 strength and 14 dex. Honestly, if you're a new player, you really should just level your vitality first and then your endurance before anything else. Speaking of which, I should probably explain what each of these stats do in case of confusion. So, each of these stats are pretty simple to figure out if you just, watch the stat line, except for attunement. That one's a little confusing. Anyways, so vitality, that's your health. Increasing it is just going to directly increase your HP. Endurance is your stamina, obviously, as well as your equip load. Strength is your damage for strength scaling weapons. Dexterity is your damage for dexterity scaling weapons. Sorry, mouthful there. Resistance, that's your defense. If you increase your resistance, you'll gain a massive increase to your physical defense, magic, flame, all that stuff. And as you'll notice, as I was increasing my strength and dexterity levels, leveling anything will slightly increase all of your defenses, but increasing your resistance will greatly increase them. Intelligence, that's for sorceries, and faith is for miracles. Attunement is a stat that you should only really be concerned about if you're playing as a sorcerer or a cleric, because the attunement is used to attune your spells. It's basically what allows you to add spells into your repertoire, and the higher your attunement level, the more spells that you can add. And I believe some spells vary in how much attunement that they consume or that they require in order to use them, although I could be wrong in that fact. Again, I've never really much messed around with sorceries or miracles in Dark Souls 1, just because I enjoy the simple strength build. So, before we end things off, we're going to get to one more bonfire. It's not too far off, it's pretty close. Although getting to it is a little tricky. But along the way, we are going to be getting on our hands on something very good. Before we do any of that, though, we're going to be getting a very special, very important item that will serve as a very good weapon for us. So, if you'll remember last episode, I told you to get your hands on the short bow, as well as a bunch of arrows. Why did I tell you to do this? Well, simple, because there's a bit of a cheese strategy you can do to get your hands on a pretty good weapon. That strategy involves destroying the dragon's tail. Aim carefully, time it right, and... Now, this is going to be a bit of a slow process. I believe it takes... Well, honestly, I don't remember exactly how many arrows this takes, but it is well worth it. This is just a good way to damage the dragon without actually having to go up there and deal with him. Although, you would be hard-pressed to kill the dragon this way. This is mostly just to get an easy way to get your hands on a very powerful sword. Shooting a dragon in its tail. Dragon in its tail. This dragon that's guarding the gate like an asshole. Two shots that time. So if you want, you can try and go for that second shot. All you really have to do is just move to the right ever so slightly. And you'll pretty easily get it. Should speed up things a little bit at least. There we go. The Drake Sword. Very good sword. So, as you can see, now let's take a look at it. So, Morningstar, 83 physical damage. Drake Sword, 200 damage. And 180 poise damage, I believe, or stamina damage, versus 360. It only requires 16 strength to wield, and 10, what I believe, yeah, 16 strength and 10 dexterity. So it's pretty easy to get your hands on this weapon. And it serves as a very powerful weapon, a much more powerful upgrade in comparison to the mace or other weapons that you should be getting around this time, in exclusion to the Black Knight sword. The Black Knight sword is much more powerful. But it also comes with a special ability. So if you two-hand it, which you can achieve by pressing Y and then do left trigger, or if you just even use the strong attack, it'll do that. A very, very powerful attack. However, downside to that strong attack, it consumes a hell of a lot of durability. 2 strikes and I'm already down from 360 to 300. Yeah, that's one hell of a cost. So, you should probably refrain from using that ability too much, otherwise you'll end up being charged quite a bit for the durability cost. But it is a very powerful sword otherwise. Kills these guys in one shot instead of the 2 to 3 that they cost the mace. And honestly, it's just an all-around great early game weapon that you can get pretty easily by just sniping that dragon's tail off. So, now we're going to try and continue on. You can continue on by just keeping under the bridge and heading through that little entrance. But if you do, that will bar you from getting a certain bonfire that's right near us. So instead, we're going to try and get to that other bonfire by getting around this really big dragon. So normally when you run across the bridge, he'll just spew fire, and you have to get behind this little area to not take damage. If you stay behind this area and out of his sight, eventually he'll get so annoyed that he'll pop on down to try and attack you directly. This is your chance to now run past him and get to this bonfire. Alrighty, we are now safe from the big dragon. Now, sitting at this bonfire, as you can see, it will despawn the dragon, which means you can now run over and pick up these items. Yay! Now, this item over here, Soul of a Nameless Soldier, and this item, a Claymore. Now, let's make sure that we get back to a safe area. And now let's take a look at that Claymore. The Claymore is another strength weapon. Has the same requirements as the Drake Sword, but its scaling is a lot better. As you can see, the Drake Sword has 0 scaling, whereas the Claymore has C scaling in both strength and dexterity. So honestly, it can be used by both strength or dexterity, but it's typically, you know, a strength build because strength requirement is a lot higher, and thus it typically just, you know, works better with strength builds. Considering the fact that it does have scaling, that also means as it's upgraded, eventually the Claymore will just completely outpace the Drake Sword if you do a strength or dexterity build, because the scaling will increase as you upgrade it, and more scaling means more damage depending on the stat that it scales with, so eventually the Drake Sword will be outdone by the Claymore. Honestly, I always found that really cool. Drake Sword makes for a great early game weapon with how powerful it is, but eventually it is outclassed by weapons that start out weaker than it, but can be made stronger than it eventually. Especially considering the fact that I believe the Claymore can be upgraded far more times than the Drake Sword. I believe the Drake Sword can only be upgraded a few times, whereas the Claymore is like one of the most upgradable weapons in the game. And it's just generally also one of the most versatile. But we are going to leave the Claymore alone for a little while, even though it looks really cool. The reach is much, much longer than the Drake Sword, which is not a distinction without, you know, without merit. Having such a longer reaching weapon does make it easier to hit more distant foes, as well as just hit more foes all at once, so you can just swing around and hit a bunch of them. But for now, we're just going to stick with the Drake Sword. Also because the Drake Sword... Oh no, they actually weigh the exact same. Well, Drake Sword does more damage for now, so we're just going to stick with that. Now, we have this great bonfire and this lever, giving us easy access to the next area up ahead. Before we end this episode completely, we've got this one last little alcove to look at. So, as you can see, there's just a bunch of hollows right here. They're easy pickings. And aside from them, we have this strange shattered shrine right here. Now this is the Sunlight Altar. This is the site of another covenant. However, you can only join this covenant, which is the Sunlight Warriors, if you have a faith level of 25. Once you have faith of 25, you'll be able to join the Sunlight Warriors. The Sunlight Warriors are basically what Solaire is. Solaire himself is a Sunlight Warrior, and the biggest distinction is that when they join players and are summoned to help boss fights, their summon signs are gold, which draws more attention. Their phantoms, or their spirits that they get summoned as, are also gold. And when they help another player defeat a boss fight, they get a sunlight medal as a reward, which they can use to level up in this covenant. And as they level up, they will eventually be able to acquire the lightning miracle, the great lightning miracle, and the sunlight lightning miracle. All of which are very powerful offensive miracles. They're the iconic giant spear of lightning that you just toss. You've seen it in the intro cutscene. It's the thing that Gwyn and all of his Silver Knights tossed at the big giant dragons in the intro cutscene. Really cool miracles. Unfortunately, we won't be using it in this playthrough, but if you're doing a faith build or even just a mixed build, it is honestly one of the coolest miracles in the game, in my opinion. Just spawning a bolt of lightning in your hand and tossing it like a javelin. So cool. Alrighty. And I believe that's going to do us for this episode. Thank you guys for joining me. And next time, we'll be continuing our way through the Undead Burg and hopefully get our way to the first Bell of Awakening and a very special, very cool boss that's guarding it. See you guys next time.